Hello and welcome to tip number 11 of our 30 days of 30 tips on the Mum's Guide to Money. So today's tip that we're talking about is, where do I claim statutory maternity pay? So you're in the right place. If you're planning a baby, you might be a bit confused about all of the rules that happen in the UK with regards to maternity leave, maternity pay, how to figure out how much money you might need to save if you were thinking about having a baby. And so on. So all of the tips I cover are relevant to you. You might already be expecting, and if you are, congratulations. It's a really confusing time, especially if you've never had to think about this information before. I was lucky with my first. I'd previously been a manager of someone who went on maternity leave, so I was reasonably aware of what I needed to do. But if I hadn't been in that position, I would have been thinking, can somebody sort of give me some help and insight as to what I should expect from a money point of view? And you might already also be on maternity leave. And if you are, it's not too late, never too late to make a plan. And the majority of the tips I cover are relevant for you as well. So what we're covering today is where to claim statutory maternity pay. It can be quite confusing because, as with all this stuff, it's written with the law in mind, with HR policy and procedure in mind. So it can get a bit confusing because it's not always written in the style that is friendly and easy for you to understand. So I'm Charlene Smith. I'm the author of The Mum's Guide to Money. So it started out life as a blog last summer and then sort of has morphed into a book in sort of 2021. And it's all about how to financially plan and prepare for maternity leave. So all of those things that you think, oh, I wish someone had told me that. Never, ever will I cover medical things. I'm not a medical professional. I'd always have a guest speaker or someone come in who can obviously provide that information correctly. So where do I claim statutory maternity pay from? So it can be a bit confusing. So statutory maternity pay, or we call it SMP, is the legal maternity pay that is allowed in the UK. So even if your employer says to you, oh, well, we don't pay statutory, they have to at least pay that equivalent amount. And under those terms and conditions, that's the minimum that has to be paid. So statutory maternity pay starts, you pick the date. So you can pick any date in that 11 weeks leading up to your due date. Once you have to have picked a date either no later than your due date or any of those times in that 11 weeks before. You can change your mind, but you have to be able to give enough notice to say you've changed your mind. Obviously, if you've only got 2 weeks to go, it could be a bit tricky. Now, if the baby's born early, obviously your maternity leave and maternity pay starts that day. If it's late, so 2 weeks after your due date, it still would have started on your due date. So it's important to keep that in mind. So how much is statutory maternity pay? So for the first 6 weeks, you get 90% of your average weekly earnings. Now, if you're at the lower end of the income scale, or you might work some funny shift patterns, or you work part-time, it's really important that you keep tabs on those sort of months leading up to maternity to make sure you're maximising your income so that you don't sort of get left short. And then for those following 33 weeks, you get the £150 a week for the 21-22 financial year, which, if you're used to a higher income, can obviously be quite a drop. So as a quick recap, so that's 6 weeks of near normal pay for most of us. And then that's 33 weeks of a reduced rate of pay. So could be significantly reduced. So where do I claim statutory maternity pay? So maternity pay in general, by the name suggests, is only is paid to women who are in employment. So if you're unemployed or you're self-employed, or you don't qualify for statutory maternity pay, there are other things out there for you. So if you are employed and you qualify, then you claim it from your employer. Sorry, can't speak today. So this is one of my sort of top tip slides. So maternity pay in its entirety, tends to sort of be talked about. It's sort of longer than the period when you're actually officially on maternity. And there are sort of some extra ways you can sort of wrap around paid leave at either end of your maternity pay to make sure you've got a bit more money. First of those is in the lead up to sort of maternity starting, can you take some holidays before then? So obviously they'd be paid out of your current leave balance. So a good way potentially to sit at home and do nothing, not spend any of your pay. You help to build up some of your maternity pay savings, maternity leave savings. And then obviously once you elect for your maternity pay to start, then you've got sort of 39 weeks of that to come. Obviously, if you get an enhanced amount of maternity pay, so you might work in a local authority or NHS or something like that, you might get over and above what statutory pays. End of your maternity leave, before end of your maternity leave, make sure you take in keeping in touch days. So that's up to 10 days where you can get full pay and you don't have to work for the whole day. But do make sure that you obviously agree any of that in advance, in writing, with your work to make sure you're not shortchanged in any way. Then once maternity is officially over, obviously take all of the holidays, bank holidays that you've missed out on while you've been on maternity. Again, another good few weeks, maybe longer, of paid leave. So really important, because you're probably going to be asked to pay for your first month of childcare in advance. And something I wasn't prepared for, but that holiday pay, etc., before you go back to work, very handy for paying that nursery bill. So as with all this stuff, how do I make sure that it's all correct and I don't become one of those horror stories that you see on a Facebook mums group where, my maternity's been all messed up. So as soon as you're expecting, just discreetly make some inquiries of how things work where you are. Check your HR policies, check your employment contract, take note of anybody else who's on maternity, maybe ask them some discreet inquiries around how it works if you're not sure. If you're pretty sure you don't qualify for statutory maternity pay, then it's start to inquire with the Department of Work and Pensions, who look after maternity allowance. So start to inquire with them as soon as you can, just so that you've got it all clear in your head. You don't miss any cut-off dates. You know what paperwork you need. You've got all of those dates sort of written out in your diary. Because sometimes with a lot of this stuff, because you don't take the time to go and investigate it, by the time someone says to you, "Oh, you could have done this," it's too late because you've missed whatever the qualifying date or time or whatever it is. So as soon as you find out you're expecting, make some discreet inquiries, and make sure you've got everything covered that way. With all this stuff, I always say, don't just leave it to your manager or one person where you work. So put everything in writing. Write to as many people as you feel appropriate. So your manager, someone who does payroll, person who hired you, the company owner if it's small. Make sure it's all in writing and more than one person knows, because while you're on maternity, people leave, they change jobs, which happened to me. Don't leave all that information with one person because you can't guarantee it's going to get dealt with. So a useful checklist here when it comes to maternity leave income. So that whole time you're away from work on maternity, just ticking off, making sure you're thinking about all these different bits of income you've got at your disposal. So you've got your paid leave before you start maternity, and then also you can take that at the other end as well. So before you go back to work, you've got your maternity pay. So whether that's statutory or enhanced, obviously caps at around 39 weeks. You might have some other income from work, might be owed a bonus, some other allowance or something that's still going to come in while you're on maternity pay. You've got your keeping in touch days, so make sure that you try and take those. They're a really good chance to dip your feet back in to go into work. And obviously it's a chance to be paid while you're on maternity because they don't affect your maternity pay. Benefits are always a good one. So you might say, but we don't qualify, we earn too much. Well, if you don't ask and you don't look, you'll never know. So even if you only got the minimum, like child tax benefit, that money helps towards nappies or clothes or whatever it might be. And then finally, if you are in that position where you don't qualify for maternity pay, for whatever reason, maternity allowance is an option for you. But it's just managed differently. So you need to work with your work with the Department of Work and Pensions rather than where you work to get that sorted. Now, I hope that tip's been useful. It's just one of the many things I cover in my book. Let's find it here for you. So here it is here. It's real. You can touch and feel it. So available on Amazon. And I always sort of put this in my videos as to why I sell on Amazon. And it's mainly for convenience for you and for me. So obviously I can't sell you a Kindle version of my book. It has to go through Amazon. And similarly, you know, they are some of the biggest book printers in the world. So they're the experts at printing books. You know, I still get a share of the profit. I'm a small business at the end of the day. But I just choose to sell my stuff on Amazon. So it steps you through loads of different things. And the whole point is at the end of it, you've got a budget. You know how to, you know how long you can afford to have for maternity leave. You know how much money you need to save. And it covers other topics such as, I will just call them out for you. So how to get your budget together? How much money do you need to save? How to sort of plan what you need to buy for the baby. So all different, what your budget should be, how to decide what to buy, what's a waste of money, what's a must have. It talks about going back to work after you've had a baby. Talks about childcare. It talks about sort of trying to keep your life normal. So how do I find a babysitter? How do I still go out for dinner? What are some of the things I can do without, you know, it being a military operation? And then finally, I think one of my favourite ones is what can I do to get prepared? So in those last few months, what are those things that I can do to get that feeling of, yep, I'm ready for this, bring it on, I'm really organised. So all of that's covered in the book. So in addition to the book, so I've got some free stuff that you can get from my website. So hop over to Amazon, get the book, whatever format works for you. Obviously, if you get Kindle, you can have it now. Come back to my website and I've got sort of 2 free things that I offer on there. The first of which is my budget and savings calculator. So all of the stuff in the book, all the time it's telling you to go and look up what your income is going to be, what your expenses are going to be. And if you fancy sort of taking some of the hard maths away, stick them in the calculator. I don't keep the information. That's all for you to take away. Download the file, put all the information in, and it will start to spit different bits of information out for you. So here's an example on the screen. One of my favourite things there is about how to break down your savings goal for maternity leave. So what small changes can you make to get to that target? So if I have to save £1,000, here's some small things I'm going to do to get to that target and make sure I sort of don't run out of money on maternity leave. And then the second thing I have is a planner. So I'll show you a printed copy here. So same cover as the book. And on my website, you download that for free. And as you're working through the book, it's giving you little jobs to do. So it will tell you, let's say, for example, chapter 3, it's got a chapter in here. Okay, so hope you can see that. So going through all the different sorts of income you might be entitled to on maternity leave. So how much annual leave will you get before maternity leave? What's the amount? How much will it go? How long will it go on for? And when does it stop? Maternity pay, same again. How much is it? How many weeks will I get it? And then what's the total? Any salary and wages, annual leave at the end of maternity leave, other income from work, bank holidays I've missed out on, might have some business income, benefits, keeping in touch days, other income, and then a whole list of other stuff you can add there yourself. So really useful for scribbling, making notes, so that you start to get your information together for your budget. Every chapter at the end of it has got a checklist. So list of jobs to do. You don't even have to think. I've already done all the thinking for you. Lots of really useful information, really stepping you through, breaking it down one thing at a time, going and getting the information, and then telling you what you need to do with it. So I hope that's been useful. Like I say, it's tip number 11 in our series of 30. They are supposed to come out every day, but life happens to get in the way for me quite a lot because I take on far too much. So I've gone from doing these videos live to pre-recording them. So I'll be trying to drop them at least a couple a week at the moment, just while I get them all done. In between working, taxi service to the children, and all the other things I've got going on at the moment. So I hope you find them useful. Keep checking back. There'll be new ones coming out all the time. And in the meantime, you can follow me on social media, or have a nosy around my website, or hop over to Amazon and buy my book. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next tip.